When you think of YouTuber-made movies, you no doubt think of extremely high-quality productions that stand the test of time, like Logan Paul's Airplane Mode, or the classics like Fine Bros F the Prom, and I absolutely need to mention the masterpiece Fred trilogy. Fred 1, 2, and 3 is the only cinematic marvel that can even potentially rival the Lord of the Rings trilogy. That's always a debate more heated than bone-in versus boneless wings. Which is better, the Fred trilogy or Lord of the Rings? Now I'm gonna go ahead and drop the sarcasm for a moment. Everyone knows YouTuber movies are absolutely fucking horrendous, downright criminal, basically a violation of the Geneva Convention being subject to a YouTuber movie. But what if I told you that two YouTubers just did the unthinkable, the impossible? They defied our very understanding of science as we know it. They delivered. They made a really good movie. Would you even believe me? You're probably thinking that I'm a lunatic that's taking crazy pills right now, even suggesting that a YouTube group could make a good film. But it's the truth. Danny and Michael Filippo of the very popular channel Raka Raka just made a horror film called Talk to Me, and it's actually good. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with their work. They have a ton of huge videos, absolute bangers, like the whole Ronald McDonald saga. And one thing that they've been known for is extremely over-the-top violence and, like, really good action sequences, especially for being a YouTube channel. Their action goes hard. And I'm happy to say all of that talent that they've demonstrated over the many years they've been on YouTube translated to the big screen beautifully. It was really cool to see what they were able to do with a bigger budget. So I really wanted to do just a pseudo moist meter here on the film. Most of you know I love horror movies. Not because I think it's a strong genre with a lot of really good movies in it, in fact quite the opposite. I love horror movies because there's almost never a single good thing about them. It is just a bunch of fucking schlock that is pumped through the worst ideas ever. I love horror movies because most of the time they are fun bad. There is a never-ending supply of trash being added to the horror dumpster, and all of it makes me giggle and spit up like a little baby and clap my hands because it's so fun bad. I can count every good horror movie I've ever seen on one hand. My left hand, I can count every single high-quality horror film I've ever watched. Until now. I'm happy to say Talk to Me now enters that very exclusive list, meaning I need two hands now in order to convey how many good horror movies I've ever seen in my life. So let's get into it. Now the narrative revolves around this creepy ceramic hand and a group of kids who keep throwing parties using this hand as like a wacky event type deal. So what you do is you light a candle, opening the door as they call it, and then someone grabs the hand, and while they're grabbing the hand they say, "Talk to me." And then once they do that, they can communicate with people from the other side, trapped in a limbo. Basically, they can communicate with dead people. And they go a step forward where they invite the dead people into their body to communicate with everybody else and give everyone a bit of a spook and a scare. But they only go for about 90 seconds and then they just take their hand, or well, someone else in the party takes their hand and separates it from the ceramic one, and that breaks the connection. They blow out the candle and the visitor is kicked out of the house. Fundamentally, that's how it works. So that's the whole concept. You grab the hand, you invite them into your body, and they start working you like a fucking puppet. Like that guy out of the first Men in Black movie, the little alien in the guy's head pulling all the levers and says, "Orion's belt." That's fundamentally what happens in this film with the spirits. So, eventually, this concept expands, where they keep throwing these parties because they really like communicating with the dead. It becomes intoxicating to them. They really love having their fucking bodies piloted like a Gundam. And that leads to a lot of problems where now the spirit doesn't want to leave, and the spirit's pretty aggressive because one of the core things they establish that if you go longer than 90 seconds, the spirit gets a little rowdy and doesn't really want to get kicked out anymore. And what they really want to do is kill the host, because if they can kill the host, they get to keep them. So it then becomes a battle of them versus the spirit realm. And it's really well done. Now, conceptually, I don't think it's the most unique thing ever. I haven't exactly seen, like, the whole hand concept done or anything, but there's something very similar in a movie called Flatliners, where they get addicted to basically killing themselves and bringing themselves back to life, so they stay dead for like a really short period of time so they can see into the afterlife for a little while. and then eventually that leads to the afterlife coming, out from the after and just into the life now. And that's very similar to how this movie works as well with the spirits. So I think conceptually it's not like the wildest thing. They're not trying to reinvent the horror movie wheel. They're just doing it better than most horror movies that have come before them. Hereditary is an example of what I think is probably the best modern horror movie ever made. And Hereditary completely changed how I perceived horror movies. It went for a very unnerving, tension-building approach that never really lets off the creepiness until the very end. I still think the last 10 minutes of Hereditary is tragic with the direction that it goes, but everything up until then I think is just unlike any other horror movie I've ever seen. I don't feel that way about Talk to Me, but everything I see here is the best version of normal horror movie approaches. They take what most horror movies fail to do and succeed. It also really helps that the acting in here is very good. Horror is known for really campy, shitty, phoned-in acting, basically where good acting goes to die, but not this movie. I was really surprised with how well everyone played their roles. All of the characters were very well done, especially the lead. The main character here I thought did an extraordinary job. She was also great at doing something that I feel most horror movie actors and actresses are bad at, which is being creepy when you need to be. So like when the ghosts are inside of her body, she's able to be creepy without it being cringe, where most of the time a lot of actors aren't able to do that. It just falls flat and gets into goofy territory where you're watching the actor or actress try and be like unnerving, but they just can't do it well. She nails it. She's able to be like sad and vulnerable and happy and outgoing and charismatic, and then also flip the switch to be like really like scary when she needs to be. It like absolutely crushed it. Really everybody in the film did. So what I think is the most impressive thing about this film, and what I really didn't expect, especially given how violent and gory Raka Raka's work is on YouTube, is that they didn't just go for like gross out gore to shock you and scare you. There is gore here, of course, don't misunderstand me, but it's actually used in a really great context where it doesn't feel like it's just yucky for the sake of being yucky, like, oh, look at all those blood and guts. It always makes sense in this film to the point where like it's actually used effectively as opposed to just like a cop-out like gore, be frightened. It's really well done. Like it's not just guts everywhere all the time. It's used sporadically. When it's used, it's very well placed and very well framed with the narrative context that it's given. And I just thought they nailed that because their main approach to horror isn't just gore. And I'm happy to say it's not just jump scares. I think there's only like maybe 1 or 2 jump scares in here at all, which is a very, very normal thing for horror movies to fall into, is just, fall back on a jump scare because people are gonna, throw popcorn up in the air and they get startled and they'll say like, damn, that was so scary because it made loud noises so many times, which is just a very lame thing. I actually don't mind horror movie jump scares, full disclosure, because they're lame. Like, I think they are a fun, bad element to horror films that usually make me laugh, but I think if you're gonna use jump scares as your primary horror tool, you're pretty trash at making a scary movie. And I'm happy to say they don't. Talk to Me does not rely on jump scares. It does what all horror movies should focus on: anxiety, unnerving you, building tension, being creepy, but not overtly where it's trying hard to show you creepy things like blood and gore and whatever. Like, it's very good about subtly building up all of this tension, all of this anxiety, and letting things really linger. Like, I thought quite a few times in the beginning this was leading to a jump scare in order to break the tension, but it never does. It just keeps it going, which is great. Now, I will say they do, however, have a couple of, ghostly spirits in here that are very clearly supposed to be, like, creepy looking, and I think those don't look amazing. I don't think they look bad, don't get me wrong, but there's, like, a really silly scene involving one of them crawling around on the floor and then sucking some toes, and I was like, damn, that was not scary. That was just really goofy. This fucking ghost bride toe demon crawls around on the floor and then just starts sucking on one of the character's tootsies. Like, it made me laugh, but I don't know if that was the intention of the scene, because the context of that scene is not like, ha-ha moment. It's like, scream time. Like, this is, shit's popping off. So that, I feel, I don't know, maybe I'm misunderstanding and it is supposed to be like a silly scene, but that's just one of those moments where I was like, I think this didn't land the way it was supposed to. It's very rare in this film, but there are a couple of instances like that. But I don't think that it is like overall detrimental to the overall product, because I think for the most part, everything they do here, everything they set out to do rather, they nailed. They fucking hit a home run here. And they actually just did a pretty good job of just being disturbing. I was really invested in the film. So I think it's a banger. I'd give it probably like a comfortable 80, maybe even like an 85% on the moist meter. So yeah, they did the impossible. This was their directorial debut, and they're YouTubers, and they're doing a horror film. They had so many things working against them, and yet they overcame the odds and delivered a banger. So yeah, that's about it. See ya. I know it's late, but I just need to whine and complain and rant about a movie I just saw really quickly. You know how much I love bad movies that are so bad that they're good. I think it's the most fun you can have is getting together with friends and watching absolutely atrocious movies or shows that you can laugh at and make fun of together. And there was a new banger, or so I thought, that was coming out called Pope's Exorcist. This is Russell Crowe as what I thought would be like a John Wick of exorcists, going out there and just slapping demons around, like actually kung fuing them and like overpowering them, fist fighting. Like, that's the impression I got from the trailer. I thought it was gonna be like absolutely wild and nutty. And I just came back from the theater after seeing it, and my god, there's just a lot that I need to talk about in terms of disappointment and bewilderment that this movie even got made in the first place. So I'm going to treat this like a little confessional here and own up to some sins. Seeing this was a sin. And I understand the Lord forgives all sins, but I feel like after he takes a peek at the Rotten Tomatoes 83% audience score, he's going to flood the earth again out of pure embarrassment for even making our species. This movie is so far from an 83%, it's laughable. It is not good by any means. I don't know why the audience score is so high. Like, it is guilty of more sins than any of the demons in the film. Well, even though there's only one main demon. It is the most generic horror schlock of all time. But its biggest crime is being boring. It borrows every single generic horror plot point, every generic horror movie cliche of, like, you know, sitting up from the bed like the Undertaker because the child's possessed and he has like a deep demony voice. Every single like horror movie trope is just ham-fisted into this. All of it dumped into this witch's cauldron and brewed into a disgusting stew. Like, it is not even done in a fun way. There's nothing creative or enjoyable about it. It's boring mostly, though there are some fun moments, like fun bad moments that I'll talk about. But overall, I am just blown away by how uninteresting the film was after seeing the trailer. The trailer got me hype. I knew this wasn't going to be a good movie. I don't feel like anyone with a working pair of eyes would watch the trailer for The Pope's Exorcist and be like, wow, that might be pretty damn good. Like, that was never a thought that crossed anyone's mind, I doubt. But I as well as many others, I imagine, were under the impression like, wow, this will be like entertainingly silly. But it really wasn't. It didn't even try to be scary, first of all. Like, that was the wildest thing to me. It really didn't even try to be a horror movie. Its scares mainly consisted of the standard lift people up using, you know, Jedi force powers and throw them around a room, or knock over a couple of crosses. Well, and I guess there is, of course, the cliche of, like, bone-snapping, walking on all fours. But past that, it doesn't even really try to build tension. There's not even jump scares, which is like the easiest slam dunk for horror films, where they could just throw in a bunch of jump scares and people are like, oh my god, it was horrifying. But it didn't even bother with that. It just does nothing. It's just so bland. It's just an empty calorie of a film. I did something I very rarely do. I took notes during this film because I was so dumbfounded by what I was watching. So I'm just going to go over it start to finish. There will be spoilers. There's a lot I want to talk about. So Russell Crowe hops back in the saddle here, dusting off the acting chops to tackle the lead role of a powerful exorcist named Gabriele Amorth. And the film opens with him performing an exorcist on a guy who's struggling with the devil coming over him. So he's bouncing around the bed all crazy like a toddler going through a sugar rush, and Gabriele's asking him questions, like a little interrogation, you know, what's my name? What do you want? Who are you? You're Satan, aren't you? You're Satan. And then he's like, yeah, I'm Satan, I'll possess anyone, I know everything. And then Gabriele's master plan is he brings in a pig and he's like, I don't believe you. You're not Satan. If you were Satan, you could possess this pig. And he's like, yeah, I could possess that pig. I could fucking possess him. Watch me possess that pig. And Gabriele's like, do it. Possess that pig. So then he does, and then the guy is back to normal. And then once the Satan is inside the pig, they just blast the pig's head off with a shotgun. Which honestly set the bar pretty high immediately, because I was like, okay, that was fun, silly, bad. He just literally did, like, fucking middle school reverse psychology on Satan. What a fucking buffoon to fall for that one, the oldest trick in the book. It's then explained a few scenes later that this wasn't a real possession, this was mental illness, and Gabriele was just doing a bit of theater. But he really did just execute that pig right in front of that guy in order to convince him that the demon was no longer there. And because he executed that pig, he then had to go through like a religious legal proceeding where he stood trial with these other bishops that were like, this is unnecessary, you're performing exorcists, it's not, there's no such thing as this evil, you know, we don't need this kind of big exorcist position anymore. You're out of line, Gabriele, we don't really need you anymore. So Gabriele's like, you guys don't know what real evil is. Even if 98% of them are like mental illness and not real possession, there's still 2% that's just pure evil and you need me. So then he walks out, but not before making a goofy noise. So as he turns his back to him, and it turns out Gabriele was also like a lawyer at one point or something, I believe he mentioned. So this was actually like a Saul Goodman moment where he was just like defending himself in religious court. And it ultimately ends with them being like, yeah, we don't really need you. So Gabriele storms off, and then as he's about to exit the door, he goes, for no fucking reason, because it was something he did earlier to a group of like nuns that walked by him. I guess that was like a catchphrase they tried, or like a calling card they tried to use for the very beginning of the film and then forgot about it because he never does it again after these two scenes. But there was a group of nuns that walked by him and he goes like literally blowing raspberries at them, and they giggle and walk by. So then he does it again after that whole religious legal proceeding. And he drops it after that. But it started fun bad. It was like, oh, this is super silly, but it seems almost self-aware and I'm having fun. But then it totally loses all of that charm. The core part of the movie then unfolds where a family just went through a loss with their father and a woman's husband passing away, and the only thing they have left is this giant estate, this holy ground that they're getting like renovations done to. So there's a ton of workers, and they end up unearthing something unholy. Now, before getting to that, the family is as cookie cutter as it gets. The mom's, you know, strong on her own. She's mentally sound, like she's doing everything she can for her children. They mean the world to her. The daughter is a rebellious teen who, I'm not exaggerating, first thing when she gets in the house is goes up to one of the workers, grabs a cigarette, asks for the light, gets a light with the cigarette, then sits on the balcony over the front porch, and the mom's like, put that cigarette out, what are you doing? And she's like, ugh, and then walks off, storms off, mad at her mom. So this was as cliche as it gets with a teenage girl and teenage angst. And then, of course, she's always listening to, like, loud music and hates her mom. Like, oh, Mom, you're being such a square. Get out of my room, Mom. I'm busy listening to music. So that's her whole character, which means nothing because after, like, 10 minutes, none of this shit matters. But that's her, and then they also have a son, a younger brother. He's like 12 or something, I don't really know. But he's traumatized because he watched their dad die. So it wasn't like some kind of normal passing or anything. It was some kind of car accident that wasn't fully explained, but he ended up getting impaled through the head, and the son sat there and watched it. So he was traumatized from it and refused to talk. Now, after all of this is established over the course of like a 5-minute speed run of getting across the most two-dimensional characters of all time, that child is exploring the house, and he goes into the basement and he sees like this glory hole, and he takes a peek through it, and there's like a door with symbols on it, and it ends up kind of possessing him. It sinks its fangs into him. This is how the demon gets in. He literally comes in through the fucking glory hole in the basement. So the child ends up immediately getting possessed within the first couple of minutes of being there, And then some of the workers go into the basement and they also notice the glory hole. They're like, oh man, this is absolutely absurd. Is there no decency? Where's the class? So they're peeking through the glory hole, and one of them lights a flare and was going to put the flare through the glory hole, but it ends up turning into a flamethrower and cremating them, which scares off all the other workers. So then all the other workers leave, and then it's just the family left in the house with their child who is now possessed. Everything I've explained right now happens almost instantly. Like, all of this was so quick, there was no build up to any of it, no tension at all. It was done as quickly as possible to get to, like, I guess what they deemed to be the scary parts, with the child having like a demon voice and saying crude, creepy things. But anyway, after the possession, the Vatican gets word about this, and then they send Gabriele out there, like, Gabriele, I've got real scary stuff happening at this location. He's like, I'm on it, chief. You know, give me my badge and my gun, I'm going in. So Gabriele is then sent there like some kind of fucking religious assassin to take down a demon. And I really thought he was going to roll up in like some kind of Justice League jet, like, or something right out of the X-Men where they have like crazy fucking jet. I thought he was going to fly in on some high-tech shit, but then he rolls up in a moped. So he just kind of scoots on in on his moped, shows up to the house in order to start attacking the demon. And the demon, which is possessing the boy, is a real wacko. Like, this guy's a goofball. So before Gabriele gets there, like right before he gets there, the mom notices something's wrong with the child. He's kind of bedridden and he looks pale. And then he starts talking in a not really deep voice, but you know that like goofy voice you'd make as a child growing up, like the like that kind of shit, where you like vocal fry yourself and then try and make it deeper. That's the voice, the very cliche horror movie demon voice. And the mom then hugs the child in order to, like, you know, calm him down. And while that's happening, she looks down and it turns out the child is squeezing her titty. And then she's like, oh, goodness gracious. And he's like, you didn't breastfeed me enough, mommy. I shit you not. That is what he says. And she's like, oh God. And she, like, covers herself up even more. And then he starts laughing about, like, squeezing her tit. And then he says, bring me the priest. So they brought in a priest that wasn't Gabriele first. His name was Thomas, and it was a bigger mismatch than when Krillin tried to fight Frieza. Thomas shows up and immediately gets fucking ragdolled by that demon. He gets thrown out of the room and he's like, good heavens, this is a little much for me. We're gonna need the big guns. So he leaves and then Gabriele shows up. So then it's the two of them and they try to tag team the demon in order to, you know, solve this situation. So Gabriele gets in there and he starts his interrogation, and the demon immediately showcases that he's more powerful than all the other ones Gabriele's seen because he knocks a cross off the wall. Like, I'm so tired of seeing that in horror movies where, like, this really powerful demon can only do, like, a couple of trivial things like blow over a vase or move a chair slightly or throw a bucket of dirt against the wall. It's like, who cares? It's not intimidating. That's fucking embarrassing. But Gabriele's like, oh, jeepers creepers. And then he's like, what's my name? And the demon gets it right. He's like, you're Gabriele Amorth. Then he gets blasted with memories from his past, sins that he hasn't fully forgiven himself for. So there's, like, a moment where he's in a war, and then there's like a lady, and then the demon pukes up a bird, and then Gabriele's like, oh, I'm out of here. So then he fucking waddles out of the room, goes up to the other priest, Thomas, and he's like, okay, that guy means business. So then he instructs Thomas to confess his sins to him so they can't be used against him when they go, you know, talk to the demon again. So Thomas is like, all right, it's been 8 months since I went to confession, and he starts to confess his sins. And Gabriele's like, 8 months? Okay, this is going to take too long. He's like, okay, Lord, all of his sins are forgiven. He's very sorry, trust me. So he literally uses a cheat code to forgive his sins on behalf of God, which I thought was, like, almost disrespectful. It's like, what the fuck? Can you do that? Like, are you allowed to do that? Like, do you have the power to just say, like, all of his sins are forgiven without him actually confessing it? It's like, damn, that was weird. Like, he had no interest at all in hearing, like, the sins he was going to confess to. He's just like, yeah, whatever, you're fucking good. Literally just gives him the stamp of approval, and he's like, alright, time to go. And when they get into the room, unsurprisingly, the first thing the demon does is show Thomas his sins that he has clearly not been absolved of. It looks like Gabriele didn't have the authority to do that, so he immediately just gets blasted with his sins, and the demon calls him Panty Sniffer. He says that he fucks the daughters of members of his congregation. And then this makes Thomas very upset that he'd mentioned that. So Thomas goes over him over to him, the child that's possessed by the demon, and two hands strangles him and shakes him like Homer Simpson strangling Bart. It was so goofy. And Gabriella's like, please, Thomas, no, don't do it. That's what he wants. As the child's like, getting fucking strangled by Thomas. That was a good fucking silly scene. But after that, then the demon laughs and then he targets Gabrielle. And he's like, you know what I want to do, Gabrielle? I want to fuck you. I want to fuck you so hard that when you start coming, you're going to feel ashamed by the release. I'm not kidding. That was his statement. Like, when asked about his main goal, it was to fuck Gabrielle. And not, like, in a literal sense, to fuck Gabrielle, at least from the way he was speaking about it. Which was jarring to hear that. It was so weird. It was so fucking weird. And then they start trying to get, like, the religious artifacts out on him, like, the power of Christ compels you type shit. And it's not working. The demon then turns off the lights, which for some reason makes them stop immediately. And I'm kind of just giving you like an overall plot summary of everything that happens here, but I want to stress, and I can't stress enough, how there is at no point any attempt to even build tension or show you unnerving things or make anything scary. It's like AI generated a script of a horror film without figuring out how to execute on the scares that they're copying from all of the horror films before it. Like, it is so bland. But anyway, after the lights go out, Gabrielle and Thomas split up. Gabrielle then goes outside and notices that there's a seal of the Vatican on, like, a well. So he ties a rope to the top of the well and then his moped and drives it, and then, which, you know, takes the lid off the well. Thomas is still inside, posted up, making sure, like, the demon child's not up to any silly stuff, any fishy business. But then things start popping off. The mom has like a giant arm come over her while she's sleeping, and I don't even know how she's able to even like fucking find the time to go to sleep, with the demon child always yelling and screaming and like throwing things around the room. Well, that's an exaggeration. Knocking things around the room lightly. But she's like in bed trying to sleep, and then a giant hand comes over her face and drags her into the mattress slowly. And then the daughter, who's in her rebellious stage, is trapped in a closet with like a bunch of like scratches going across the wood next to her. And Thomas is there, and he, you know, approaches the demon about it, like, stop it, demon. And then the demon bites his ear, like full-blown Mike Tyson bites a piece of his ear, and Thomas is like, oh my, you didn't just do that. Like, he didn't yell or scream or anything. He gets his ear bitten off, and he just looks more like inconvenienced than anything. He's like, ugh, there goes a piece of my ear, zoinks, god damn it. And then he just like walks back out. So Gabrielle then realizes that there's a lot more at play here than they originally thought. There's a bigger mystery afoot now that he's opened this well, and he sees a bunch of like skeletons, and then he drops a piece of fire paper in there to see how deep the well goes, which of course causes it to erupt like a goddamn volcano again, just like what happened with the glory hole. And then Gabrielle rushes back in, sees all the chaos. He pulls the mom out from the bed, and then he opens the closet door where the daughter was getting attacked by little scratches, and he's like, this is not a good place to do that, so please stop. Cease that foolishness. And the demon stops, and then the girl leaves the closet. And then we have the most generic plot device when it comes to horror films ever. Gabrielle reveals that all they need to do in order to save the day is learn the demon's name. This is something that has been used in every fucking horror movie that deals with demons or possession since the beginning of fucking time. It is so lazy and boring, but that's the major plot point. It's them then needing to find out what the demon's name is. So they start exploring. They also confront the demon again, who reveals what his real plot was: to possess Gabrielle. He didn't want to just possess the family, he wanted Gabrielle. So they're exploring the premises. They eventually find that glory hole and they bust it open. They go inside the area. Turns out it's a catacombs where there's a bunch of these skeletons all over the place. And then while this is happening, the like super high tier bishop, like max level bishop that sent Gabrielle here in the first place, then starts having a panic attack. He's like, it's worse than we thought. He read like a letter or something from like a book of reports that they keep getting about the situation. He's like, oh my goodness. So he starts freaking out. He's like, ah. And then he has like a little mini heart attack. He ends up in the hospital. And as they're exploring the catacombs, they're learning like, wow, this dates back like fucking 400 years ago. Like, this demon's been around for a long time, and the Vatican tried to seal it off and cover it up. And then while that's going on, the priest is laying, like the high bishop is laying in bed, surrounded by some of the priests that were part of like the religious legal proceeding. And then he pulls off his oxygen mask and just pukes up blood on one of them. So I guess he was starting to get like possessed too to some level, or he was really just stressed out about the situation. But they eventually find this almost ritualistic chamber. I can't remember exactly what it was for, but it has like a torture device in there. It also then has like what was a very strong priest back in the day on like a throne, and they read his diary. And in that diary, they learn the demon's name. It's Asmodeus. And he can possess a lot of different people. He's like a fucking puppet master. And Aaron, I saw this with Aaron as well as Ridley, Eli, and Tiana. Aaron made a great point. If the whole thing is you only need the demon's name in order to win, that super strong priest must have been really lacking. Like, he must have been fucking, you know, overdosing on Xanax or something and really dropped the ball, because he literally had Asmodeus' name not only written down in the diary or written down in the book, but had a full fucking picture, hand-drawn painting with like a stylized Asmodeus name under there. So like the name was readily available and was still unsuccessful in the exorcism and saving the day. So that guy must have fucking sucked. He must have been terrible at his job. So they learn the demon's name is Asmodeus. As they learn that, one of the other priests that was really mean to Gabriele walks through and sees that the Lord on the crucifix is bleeding a little bit, and he's like, no! And then he takes a sabbatical and leaves for some reason. So now they have the demon's name. They then confront the demon. They're trying to like win, but the demon, you know, starts possessing the daughter. He still has the son. He's like writing things on his chest like, God isn't here. God is not welcome. No God allowed. You know, this is a demons only club. And he's like, you know, strangling someone with Thomas with his tie. The demon girl that he's now possessed is like slapping the mom around. And then Gabriele, in order to stop the madness, is like, all right, fine, just possess me. So he does. Asmodeus then possesses Gabriele. His plan was to infiltrate the Vatican in order to cause mayhem and wreak havoc. And so he goes downstairs into the throne room and he grabs a giant scepter, and Thomas walks in like the fucking action movie hero. And then he sees the girl that he fucked from the congregation. She's got like her titties out and shit and starts fighting. They get into a fist fight. She's covered in blood. Gabriele is still trying to fight back against Asmodeus, but it's not winning. Thomas then has like this little coin or something that he pushes on the forehead of the girl, which blows her up, literally insta-gibs her like it's Team Fortress 2. And then Gabriele's in like a one-on-one battle with the demon. I also totally forgot a core component here because I'm getting lost in the sauce explaining it. But one of Gabriele's big sins that the demon keeps showing him is a long time ago, there was a lady who they thought was possessed. Gabriele went there and learned it wasn't a possession, it was a mental illness. She was just talking about like sexual abuse, trauma and stuff, and Gabriele's like, I'm not really equipped to handle that. And then she bit the head off of a bird in front of him, and he's like, yeah, this is just mental illness. And then she ends up killing herself right in front of him, and Gabriele feels immense regret for not helping her and working on the mental health side of exorcisms. So that's why he swore to like do that from that point forward, but he never forgave himself. So the demon's showing him that, and then after Thomas blows up that girl, they also, the sound effect they used for the blowing up was fucking fantastic. I'm actually pretty sure it came straight from Counter-Strike after you armed the bomb. It sounded outrageous. So after that, Gabriele is wrestling with that girl, shaking her around, and then Thomas throws him like a powerful religious artifact, and he fucking sticks it on her head, throws her into like this pit of water, and then starts reading the demon's name to it and vanquishing it to hell, and saves the day. Family's safe, demons back in hell, and then we have the ending of the film, which once again brought it back to a silly bad state, where the high bishop that puked blood, I guess, is totally fine now. You know, maybe that's just something he does when he's stressed out, I guess, but like he wasn't even possessed or anything. He's just like totally fucking fine. The other priest that took a sabbatical gets replaced, and then they bring in Thomas and Gabriele, and they're like, yeah, this was a serious situation, but it's 1 of 200. You've only solved 1 out of 200. There's still 199 more to go. are you willing to take up the task? Like actual Marvel Avengers, Nick Fury recruiting them level shit. And Thomas is like, let's get to business. And Gabrielle reaches back for a handshake and says, let's go to hell. And that's where it ends. Literally setting it up for sequels, like a fucking Men in Black style universe for this, where they're just going to different places and performing exorcisms. So that was the whole film in a nutshell. The reason I wanted to explain all of it is because explaining it makes it sound far more fun shitty than it is. Everything I explained in theory is fun bad, but in execution is fucking awful. I don't really know what the purpose of this movie was, because like I said, it doesn't even really try to be scary or unnerving. It's actually just kind of a genuine waste of time. There are entertaining moments, like I said, there are times where it is goofy, fun, bad, but that's not the overall experience with the film. Like, there were times where we laughed at the silliness, but most of the time it was just sitting there in silence, wasting time watching it. It just didn't do anything in general. Like, it just didn't do anything. It was just kind of a fucking mess of a film where it had like DNA of all of the horror films before it, but didn't even bother to execute it in any meaningful way. It didn't even try. Like, it literally feels like they didn't try at all. That just they had some kind of contractual obligation to fulfill, so they just fucking pooped this out as quickly as possible. It really seemed like it was very rushed. But yeah, I wanted to talk about it because I was very excited to see this movie. I've talked about it on stream a few times about how, like, I'm really confident that this will be a fun bad movie, and I was just wrong. It really wasn't fun bad at all. So yeah, I just kind of want to talk about it a little bit and rant. That's about it. So yeah. There's an expression I'm sure you've all heard before. It's about the journey, not the destination. And that couldn't be more true. In fact, the destination is the saddest part of the whole adventure when it comes to watching all of the Twilight movies. Finishing them isn't something I'm looking forward to because I know it's going to be bittersweet. I posted a video a few days ago where I kind of debriefed after watching the first and half of the second movie. I embarked on this quest with Aaron, Meadow, and Tiana to watch all of the Twilight films together because I was told that they were fun bad, like super shitty but in a really entertaining way. So I'd never seen them prior to this and decided to get the gang together to indulge. And it has been an incredible journey. We recently finished New Moon and Eclipse, the third movie, which means there's only 2 films remaining, which we plan on watching this weekend. And I just wanted to do kind of what I did already and debrief on what we've watched so far. So this will be me going over Twilight New Moon and Twilight Eclipse. This series is only improving. And by improving, I mean like getting worse, but in a really enjoyable way. Yeah, we can talk about Twilight now. We finished New Moon and Eclipse today. So there's a lot to unpack here with these next 2. It seems they learned a lot from the first movie on how to make it even worse. So they took everything that didn't work in the first film and amplified all of those scenes. Edward's taking Bella to this birthday party with the vampire. She gets a paper cut and bleeds a little bit, so Jasper, he has PTSD, fucking flips a switch and tries to murder her. Edward throws her back, she cuts herself again, and this makes Edward leave her because she bled. So he's like, in order to protect you, I've got to leave, so I'm leaving. And he does. So he's away for like 6 months, and during that 6 months, Bella gets closer to Jacob. And those two hit it off. She keeps talking about how warm Jacob is, and he's a werewolf. You know, it's this big, awful romance thing. And what's crazy is, much like Edward, Jacob also has, like, uncontrollable fucking awful anger out of nowhere from time to time. And there is still, once again, nothing but pure disdain and revulsion from Bella, like, half the time. So this one's all about her getting close to Jacob. They're about to kiss. Edward's in, like, Rio de Janeiro or something. And he tries to call Bella. Jacob answers and says that her dad's at a funeral. So Edward thinks she killed herself, so then Edward decides he's going to kill himself. So then he goes up to, like, the vampire high council for suicide. You team Edward or team Jacob? I was team Jacob, probably still am, because at the very least, he's not perpetually gaslighting and manipulating Bella. But he is also completely fucking unhinged. In the third movie, I think it was the third movie, he's just having a conversation with her about Edward and how she loves Edward, and during the conversation, he just, like, kisses her, and then she punches him in the face and breaks her hand on his face. And he also has these absolutely violent mood swings as well. So he's fixing a bike one time, and Edward came up as a conversational topic, and he says, "I'm tired of it!" So he takes a fucking wrench and throws it right by her head against a wall and blasts, like, the fucking back out. Does Bella seem interested in any of them? No. So Aaron made a great point. One of the core things that Edward likes about Bella is that he can't read her mind. And after watching 3 of these movies now, I think Aaron's right when he said the reason that he can't read her mind is because she's so fucking stupid she doesn't have thoughts, so there's nothing to read. That became a core plot point in New Moon as well, because when they go to the Vampire High Council, one of their gifts, like the leader's gift, is he can touch someone and see everything they've ever experienced or whatever, and he goes up to her and can't see anything. So once again, I think Aaron's right that she literally has just a sub-zero IQ and actually experiences nothing. She's like a fucking plant with photosynthesis. So there's nothing to see. She's not special. She does nothing helpful. All she does is cause problems for everyone around her. At no point in even a single scene in these 3 movies has she done something helpful or useful. All she is a perpetual damsel in distress that for some reason everyone fights to the death for. Even people that have no reason to. Like, Jacob's entire clan of wolves protects her. For absolutely no reason. But in Eclipse, she cut her arm to save Edward. That's something. That's true, she did cut her arm to distract one of the vampires for a second. Like, literally a split second. But you know what she also could have done in order to distract that vampire? Literally just yell at her. Like, the blood itself wasn't the distraction. It was literally just her getting the attention. So she smelt the blood, and it got her attention. She could have thrown a rock at her, and it would have accomplished the same goal. It wasn't exactly some kind of crazy, smart, like, crafty play. But what's even more baffling is, like, I feel like there's actual cuckoldry undertones to this film. So, like I mentioned in the first movie, the extended cut, there's a scene where James and Victoria are making out, and then the leader vampire of that small team just watches and smiles. And that scene goes on for like 15 seconds. And then coming into New Moon and Eclipse, at the end of New Moon, Edward is back. He's with Bella. They go to meet Jacob in the woods. And she goes up to Jacob and right in front of Edward says, "I love you," to Jacob. And then says, "But we can't be together." And then walks back to Edward. And he's like totally fine with that. And then in Eclipse, there's a scene where they're trying to hide Bella. So they're in a tent. And she's getting cold because it's cold by the tent. And Edward's concerned she's going to die of like hypothermia. Jacob gets concerned about it too. And since it was established that Jacob is warm because he's a wolf, he crawls into bed with her to cuddle in front of Edward with his approval to watch. So he just sits there and snuggles with Bella while Edward watches, and then they have a conversation. And then shortly after that, Jacob learns that Edward and Bella are getting married. Also, Edward's a virgin. For 100 years, he's been a fucking virgin. And they're going to get married, and that's going to lead to them finally having sex. And Jacob didn't know. He learns that they're getting married. So he storms off, and Bella panics like, "Oh my god, no, wait. Oh, how could you tell him that we're getting married? I was trying to keep it a secret from him." So she catches up to Jacob and then tells Jacob to kiss her. So then they make out for like 30 seconds. And then she walks back to Edward. And Edward's like, I know what you did. And then she's like, "Yeah, but I love you more." And he's like, "I know." Even after she just fucking blatantly cheated on him in front of him. There's so much that I haven't even begun to touch on. I'm trying to figure out the best way of, like, composing all of the thoughts, because these 2 movies had so much to them. So, like, Victoria lost her lover, James, in the first movie. He became that big bad guy once he smelt Bella's stench. So then they had to kill her because he was obsessed with her. And Victoria was left without her lover. So she spends the entirety of New Moon just kind of popping up randomly to accomplish nothing. So she'll show up and then get hunted by the werewolves or the other vampires, and she just runs away every time. But during one of those chases, she picks up an old man, like literally like she's got a nerd by the lockers. So she's got this old man by the collar and then like drops him and runs away because the rest of the people found her. And he died from that injury. He died because she picked him up like a high school bully. And it was just one throwaway line where Jacob said he was dead. He just said he passed away. Oh, also, Meadow made a really good point. When she was... I'm bouncing back and forth all over New Moon here. Sorry for that. There's so much to put together for the puzzle here. When Bella was in, like, Rio de Janeiro or wherever the fuck it was, and they go to, like, the Vampire High Council, Dakota Fanning's there, and all these vampires have gifts. You know, like, Edward reads minds, Alice can see the future. Fucking Jasper's gift is he's a Confederate soldier. I shit you not. His backstory is he's a Confederate soldier, got turned back in the day, and was training New Bloods, and was blessed with the gift of mood changes. Which sounds very par for the course for Twilight. His gift is the ability to influence moods. So maybe he's the puppet master that makes everyone have these violent mood shifts and it's not like borderline personality disorder. That's possible. But my god, his gift is like mood shifts where he can subtly influence how people feel. Like he makes them 30% less sad or 5% more sad. And other vampires also have gifts. And when that guy touches her and realizes he can't see everything from her past, he then says, I want everyone to try her gifts on her. Meadow pointed out, like, what if one of them could just shoot lightning? She's not going to be immune to a lightning bolt. It just so happened that they got lucky, or she got lucky that the only gifts they had were, like, mental ones. Because the second one of them starts fucking Darth Sidious lightning blasting her, she's fucked. The imprinting? Oh yeah. Well, that was just kind of yucky to listen to. It wasn't like the most egregious garbage of the movie. Jacob keeps talking about imprinting because they're wolves. So like some dude has like 2 lovers because they've imprinted or something. It was totally irrelevant. It really didn't mean anything, honestly. It didn't matter. Why are you Team Jacob then? Like I said, because there has not been a single scene in any of these 3 movies where Edward does anything other than gaslight or lie to her. I swear to God, half of his lines with Bella are, I promise to do this thing, and then actual minutes later, completely breaks that promise and lies to her. And every time the two of them talk, it seems like they hate each other. So like, Bella will be like, I can't live without you, Edward. And he'll be like, but I can live without you. And she's like, you're right, I can live without you. And he's like, no, but I really can't live without you, Bella. And then she's like, no, but I really can live without you, Edward. I love you, but this might not be right. Why would you love me? Like, it's just constant hostility. Just actual hostility, nonstop. It's not romantic at all. Not the fault of the actors, though. The writing and source material is just trash. Oh, yeah, I mean, obviously, all of these actors have proven that they are good actors. They were dealt a real shitty hand with this. What do you think about the werewolf design? What do you mean? It's just a fucking wolf. It's not like there's a unique design there. And also all the werewolves are perpetually shirtless. Werewolves do have unique designs, dummy. They all wear jean shorts. True, I guess that is a pretty unique design. They do all wear some jorts. Good point. Not wrong. What's your favorite out of the 3 so far? It's gotta be Eclipse. They are actually getting better. So Eclipse is the one I'm talking about, where she just point blank cheats on Edward twice, and he's okay with it. Like, this one is just so crazy. And then, like, the big twist that Jasper's actually a Confederate soldier. Like, this is definitely the best one. This one also has, like, action sequences at the end. It's a full-blown war. So that was kind of cool, and the fighting was really goofy. Yeah, Jasper got a southern drawl out of nowhere. He was giving the backstory, and then out of nowhere, at no point so far had he done any southern accent. And then after he tells the story, even like mid-story, he starts speaking in a southern accent. And even at one point where like Alice like gets the better of him during training, he hits her with like a, well, howdy there, little missy. Golly, ma'am. For no reason. It was crazy. It was fucking crazy. Like, I just don't get where the romance is, though. That's just totally lost in all 3 of these films. There's no such thing as romance. Except there's some semblance of humanity when Jacob talks to Bella. Like, they actually speak normally. Meanwhile, half of what Edward does is just lie. Or just say, like, really edgy shit, like, about suicide being cool. Well, another example. In the first movie, one thing Edward makes very clear is that he breaks into Bella's room to watch her sleep. This is before they were even dating or anything. Like, he just said, like, he comes in, like, over the course of months just to watch her sleep. Oh, another thing that's super weird in New Moon. So, she becomes a recluse for 6 months, going through, like, very serious depression and, like, these night terrors she has because Edward left her. And then this fucking goofy guy, I don't even know his name because he's so meaningless in the plot. So they go to a movie together. It's this guy. This goofy guy. The second Bella snaps out of her depression, it's been 6 months, she doesn't really go to school. When she does go to school, she isolates herself from her friends, including this guy and the whole group. Oh, his name's Mike? Okay, Mike. Yeah, the second she comes back, after this 6-month hiatus of, like, depression, she sits down at the lunch table, Mike goes, "Is Bella back?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Good, do you want to see a movie together?" Immediately asks her out on a date in front of, like, his girlfriend. Mike, I thought, had a girlfriend, which was the Anna Kendrick character, because they went to prom together, they made it very clear they both like each other a lot. They're still, like, very close. And then the second Bella comes back, he just, in front of her, asks Bella to a movie. And Bella's like, "Sure," and then brings Jacob with him, or with her. So then they're watching this movie called Face Punch, and I guess it's so heavy on action that it made Mike sick. So he goes to puke, and then Bella and Jacob leave without him. And then they start flirting and sitting down on, like, a staircase, and then Mike's like, "Alright, I think I'm just gonna go home." And then Jacob gets really offended for some reason. He's like, "Oh, well, if you're feeling sick, maybe you should go to the hospital. And maybe I should put you in the hospital." Out of nowhere. And then he's like, "Fuck, I gotta go home." Man, that was a good movie. It was a good movie. There's a scene I forgot to even mention in the yesterday. It's at the beginning of this movie, so when she's going through her depression and then slowly snapping out of it, she once again goes to another movie, but this time with Mike's girl, the Anna Kendrick character. They go to a movie together, and while they're leaving the movie, Bella sees, like, biker dudes in an alleyway, and they're catcalling. They're like, "Hubba hubba, baby. Woohoo, you want to take a ride on my bike?" And we're, like, revving it up. And Andrew Kendrick character's like, "Let's go, Bella. They're being creepy pigs." And Bella's like, "I'm gonna go over there." So she does, and then takes a ride on some middle-aged dude's motorcycle. And while she's doing that, she's having Force Ghost projections of Edward saying, "No, you're going too fast. Bella, this is dangerous. Bella, stop." And then eventually, like, the Force Ghost is right in front of her, so this total biker stranger that was just being a fucking maniac, she, like, shouts at him and she's, like, screaming, "Stop, stop!" So then he, like, hits the brakes and he's like, "Whoa, what a weirdo, get off my bike." So he takes her back to the movie theater, and then Bella and the other girl walk away. It was such a wild scene. Who's your favorite character? It's gotta be Bella. I think Bella's probably my favorite character because she's actually just a lobotomite. She doesn't make any decisions that make any level of sense and can't reciprocate real human emotion. Not that any, like, positive emotions are ever tossed her way from any of the characters in these movies, but even still, she's just hollow. It's, like, fascinating. Her dad is the only non-toxic one. Yeah, her dad's, like, the only character in any of these movies that, like, makes sense. His daughter just keeps running away, will vanish for days on end. Every time she's home, she's yelling and screaming, having these night terrors about losing Edward. If she's not screaming in the middle of the night, she's pouting around, moping and being sad all the time. And he's just like, "What the fuck do I do?" So he's literally drowning himself in fucking Pat's Blue Ribbon at all hours of the day. And it's like, yeah, that sounds about par for the course. Another thing that I absolutely could have seen happening during these movies' heyday, so in that scene where Jacob snuggles Bella in front of Edward in order to keep her warm, the line he says right before that where she's like, shaking and her teeth are chattering, and they're like, she needs my warmth. One thing that he says, and I already know what the reaction to the theater was, is he says, "I'm hotter than you," to Edward as he crawls into the bed to warm her up. And I know the second Jacob said that, the theater erupted into applause. I guarantee there was audible gasps and fainting from the women in the audience. Team Jacob and Team Edward would unironically fight during the movie. Shit was hilarious. Yeah, I guarantee there was, like, actual fistfights over Team Edward or Team Jacob. If I was to ask you what is the most iconic moment in cinema history, there's only one right answer. It's the death of the beloved character Officer Greg in the movie The Last of the Grads. It's of course no surprise that I play this character, Officer Greg, in the movie because I'm the only one equipped with the skill set to truly embody such a powerful and moving character. So I'm gonna go ahead and play the death scene for you, as well as his signature line, his catchphrase, "What do you want to do? Shut it down," which I'm sure you've heard many times by now, but maybe you didn't know it came from Officer Greg. So I'll play that for you real quick before talking a bit more about it. This fucking guy. What do you want to do? Shut it down? God! Fuck, I get emotional every time I see that scene, I'm sorry. Greg, up until this point, without spoilers, had cemented himself as the main character, and this is when the movie really took a bit of a turn and surprised the audience with Greg's death. Greg, God rest his soul, was such a beautiful character and really held the movie together, much like my previous role in the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 where I played District 8 Helper. Officer Greg was really the driving force behind this whole film, everything that happens after his death, with the characters of course being strongly affected by it, lamenting the fact that he sacrificed himself for the greater good. No spoilers of course, but Officer Greg is really the entire spirit of the film. And I bet you're wondering how this was even achieved because it looks so real. Well, it's not CGI, it's not even practical effects. I just died. They just fucking straight up curb stomped me and I died. But luckily they had an on-scene necromancer to bring me back, so I was able to continue to exist. But yeah, I'm breaking the magician's code and revealing it all to you. I'm showing you how the sausage was made. The reason it looks so real is because it is. That's the secret formula to this Krabby Patty. That actually fucking happened and was filmed. Officer Greg truly did die that day, and god damn it did he go out in a blaze of glory. I also really think this scene showcases my range as an actor. In the Hunger Games I played a much more stoic, matter-of-fact character, kind of like a father figure to the whole franchise, whereas here, I'm playing a much more laid-back, cocky kind of guy. Well, what do you want to do? Shut it down, big guy, huh? Well, what do you want to do? Shut it down? And then ultimately leading to a very gruesome and tragic death where you can really see the panic and fear start to take hold of him, begging for his life, pleading for mercy. But there was no mercy on that day. As I'm sure you and all of Hollywood at this point are aware of by now, I am one of the finest classically trained method actors in the business today. So, on set, I said, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it the right way. We're gonna do it big, and we're gonna do it wet. So that's a real Bowie knife you see there, and that's actually my leg getting sliced. And then they said, Charlie, please, okay, that's far enough. This is more than enough realism to the film. Please, God, just stop, you maniac, you madman. I said, no, we're not done. This curb stomp? Fucking curb stomp me, pussy. They said, Charlie, no, don't, that's too far. I said, roll it. Let's go. And then bang! Officer Greg takes one for the team and cements himself as a cinema icon, a legend in film, who will no doubt be studied in college courses for years to come. Citizens Kane, more like Citizens Lame. Officer Greg is the ultimate character, and I put it all out there for this bad boy. I think Officer Greg is the finest character to ever grace the big screen, and probably always will be, until I take another role in another film. Since The Last of the Grads premiere last week, audience members have been shocked by Officer Greg's demise on screen. The New York Times gives it 2 thumbs way up. No one expected to be so emotionally invested in a character. Even if you're one of those guys that's like, oh, it's all fake, it's just a fucking movie, Officer Greg's not real, you're wrong and you're a fucking idiot. Take your diaper off and become a man. Watch Officer Greg and tell me you don't get emotionally attached to that guy. It's impossible. I became Officer Greg. I fully assimilated into the role, and what you see on screen isn't Charlie anymore. It's just Officer Greg. Officer Greg's using Charlie's skin as a fucking flesh puppet. And god damn it, does the movie get improved because of my commitment to the role. I just wanted to share this with you because audience members can't stop talking about the death of Officer Greg, citing it as one of the most powerful things they've ever seen in their life. Emotionally draining, but in a beautiful way, you know? Not shock for the sake of shock, but shock for the sake of making you reflect on your own life. Officer Greg was able to challenge the audience members to be introspective and really start to think about how they approach things in their day-to-day activities. I couldn't not talk about this role that I took here, of course. And that's about it. So yeah. If I asked you who are the most popular movie characters of all time, you would undoubtedly give the big four. Darth Vader, Captain Jack Sparrow, Wall-E, and the unnamed, uncredited District 8 helper from the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1, which of course was portrayed by me. Ever since I exploded onto the acting scene with my debut in the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1, I have been at the top of most people's best actors lists, and for good reason. I was able to really sell a performance and drive that movie. Without that character, the whole franchise just didn't work, and with that kind of responsibility on my shoulders as a young actor, I was able to not only exceed expectations, but reinvent what it even means to be an actor. I transcended simple acting and truly became unnamed, uncredited District 8 helper. And as a result, I wasn't recognized by the Oscars. I was snubbed there, unfortunately, but I was able to amass a following of people that understand real acting, and my character is still talked about today, not only by Hunger Games fans, but just by movie enthusiasts in general, as one of the most important characters to ever hit the big screen. Now, of course, after achieving this level of renown in the acting field, I was inundated with movie scripts, and still am. In fact, recently Marvel reached out to me to try and replace Tom Holland as Spider-Man, but as you can imagine, this is just so beneath my acting talents. I couldn't help but giggle and spit in their face. I should have put a finger in my butthole and made them sniff it. Almost insulting that they try and offer me such a trivial role. With my expertise in the field, I love Spider-Man as much as the next guy, and congratulations to Tom Holland. He's doing great work. In fact, I remember an interview where Tom Holland said that Charles White was actually one of his main inspirations to get into acting, so I'm glad I was able to inspire an up-and-coming generation of actors, but that character it doesn't meet my strict criteria when it comes to choosing the scripts I want to associate my talent with. Which brings us to the big news I have for you today. If a fucking asteroid crashed into Earth right now and brought with it proof that big-tittied aliens exist in our universe, that would only be the second most interesting news you'll hear today after this. 5 months ago, I posted a video letting you all know that I will be again gracing the big screen as Officer Greg in a horror movie called Last of the Grads. Officer Greg will no doubt be a horror movie icon after this airs, and I can tell you now the release date is May 14th. That's right, you can stream this from the comfort of your own home on May 14th. If it's too scary, you can hide under the blankets and get your mother to pop a titty in your mouth for some milk so you can calm down a bit, because this bad boy isn't pulling any punches. Now, of course, this would have been in theaters across the globe as well as sweeping the Sundance Awards, but just due to the pandemic and everything, it wasn't really an option, so we'll be going to streaming services, which is probably better overall so you can enjoy it from your own home, of course. The movie is intense and gory and moving. I believe my character, Officer Greg, will be a character that is studied for decades to come as a masterclass in acting performance. And you can witness history on May 14th by going to Gumroad, which I'll put in the description below. You can click that link. It's $6.99 to rent the movie, stream the movie. But if you click the link, you get $1 off and then use the offer code. All of it's in the description if you're interested in checking it out. If you thought my performance in the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 was impressive, you haven't seen shit yet. You most likely, like most people, thought that my character in the Hunger Games couldn't be topped. It was the zenith of acting, but I have outdone it. I have gone to a level above acting, and I will show you with Officer Greg. Just look at this picture here. This is a little behind the scenes action here. They won't show you this in school, because this is what it looks like to be completely on top of the game. This is me not reading the script, but becoming the script. Literally embodying the character. You can actually see me starting to shapeshift a little bit like a reptilian. I'm becoming Officer fucking Greg. And look at the fellow cast members surrounding me. They can't believe their eyes. They didn't realize someone could act like this, if it's even acting anymore. I'm blurring the lines of what it means to be acting versus just becoming. So you can see that I'm really putting my best cock forward here, and I'm really going for the Oscars this time. I got robbed years ago with the Hunger Games, and I won't let it happen again. I'll show you a couple more clips that I already shared with you of Officer Greg, but just so you get a little more insight into the character and how I'm able to deliver such a crazy next-level performance.
I really don't think those kids should be alone in that high school.
What do you want to do? Shut it down?
That right there is Officer Greg's signature catchphrase right there. If Officer Greg was a cereal box, this would be on the front of it. What do you want to do? Shut it down? That line right there tops some of the greats like Tears, Lost in the Rain, and dog shit like that. This is a good fucking line. Delivered beautifully by Charles White. And who am I even looking at? Is that even Charles White on the screen, or is that just Officer Greg? Charles White is gone, I think. And now only Officer Greg is left.
God, what the fuck happened to you, Greg? You cry when it rains. You cry when it doesn't rain. You cry when you're dreaming. Cry when you're awake. Shit.
I played this fucking character, and I'm on the edge of my seat wondering what happens next to him. It's crazy. This level of acting I didn't even think was possible. I have impressed myself, and I already knew I was one of the best actors this world had ever seen, but this is something truly special. A masterpiece. And it's actually raining here right now, which, that's gotta mean something, right? Like, that right there is the tears of Officer Greg coming down, and he's crying about how beautiful it was to be in the movie. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it comes out on May 14th. You can click the link in the description if you want to order it and rent it, watch it, and have fun with it, go wild. Yeah, I just wanted to update because it was a lot of fun to be a part of the project, and hopefully you guys enjoy it and like the character. So yeah, get ready to go wild on May 14th. That's about it. So yeah. I remember back when Game of Thrones was ruined, everyone was saying it's the worst finale of all time, you know, now the show's terrible and shit like that, and you see that a lot, you know, this is the worst show of all time, holy shit, the writing couldn't be this bad on anything, and it always makes it very clear to me, you've never seen American Horror Story, you fucking swine. American Horror Story is an incredibly unique show that really revels in the goofiness, over-the-top nonsense that it puts on screen, and I fucking love it. In American Horror Story, you're not going to find any semblance of good writing. The whole show feels like it's written by a middle schooler going through his Pierce the Veil stage. It's incredible to me. There's more character development in porn parodies. The characters that walked in on Pawn Stars to sell shit have more character development through that episode than the characters throughout an entire season of American Horror Story. Power Rangers has better writing. And if you want to talk about shitty season finales, American Horror Story sets the gold standard. They never know how to conclude any of their seasons. It's as if the director goes in the day of filming, shits his pants and comes up with it on the spot. Just as a fat key bump of coke, gives himself a coffee enema, his eyes roll into the back of his head, and he just starts fucking ghost writing the most nonsensical, silly endings possible. Let me give you an example. Last season was about the world ending because the Antichrist came, and the witches fought back to bring the world back and save everyone. Well, in the final episode, the main witch enters into a bathtub to travel back in time to fight the Antichrist. She goes back in time successfully through the bathtub, and the Antichrist is a teenager who's having a temper tantrum with his mommy. And he storms across the road only to get hit by an SUV driven by the witch. And that's how that boss battle was taken down, that raid boss. Just hit him with an SUV and the Antichrist died and the world was saved. Thanks to the power of Ford, I guess. It's fucking genius. The show is the result of what would happen if you gave someone's edgy 16-year-old a decent budget. But that 16-year-old just didn't really have much talent. They just had a vision that they didn't have the talent to bring to life. It's fucking great. I love the show. I unironically like the show, by the way. I think it's one of the few shows that is totally fine with being subpar in every possible category and creating something totally unique. And I love it. This season was no different. This season was American Horror Story 1984. It just ended last week, and this may very well be one of their best seasons just because of how ridiculous it turned out to be. To give you perspective, they forgot to write a final episode. They didn't write an actual climax. So the whole season was about Camp Redwood, a place where these horrific mass murders took place over the course of decades. And Emma Roberts, who I think is a great actress, and she's even good in American Horror Story, which is saying something because nobody's good in American Horror Story, but she does a good performance, as she usually does, and she plays the main character, Brooke, who has a very troubled past. Let me give you just a little sampler, let me give you a little quick cum shot of the kind of writing you'll find around these characters. Her troubled past consists of her previous engagement. She was getting married to a man she thought she loved, but she was a virgin, and she was saving herself for marriage for him. But he thought she cheated on him because his friend went to her house the night before the wedding. And so, naturally, his response to learning this was, on their wedding day, he brought a gun to the ceremony, and as they were saying their vows, he brought out the gun, shot her dad, shot his best friend, and then shot himself in front of her after saying, "This is your fault, Brooke." You know, it's genius. You can't possibly comprehend the subtleties in there, those nice little vicissitudes that the director was able to expertly weave into this piece of art. A magnum opus of writing, I'd say. So she has this troubled past, and then she teams up with this group of other people her age who all have this troubled past, and they all go to Redwood to escape. But the day before Brooke decides to go along, she gets attacked by a serial killer named the Night Stalker, whom she's able to fight off. And this is important because the serial killer has the power of Satan, Billy Idol, and anime on his side, and he doesn't take kindly to not getting his prey. So this supernatural, Satan-worshipping, Lucifer-approved serial killer follows Brooke. Now, they all get to Redwood, and there's another serial killer that ends up at Redwood named Mr. Jingles. And then by the end of the season, there's another serial killer that ends up at Redwood. And then by the end of the season, there's another serial killer that ends up at Camp Redwood, all pretty much out of nowhere. It's fucking great. It's as if you're watching a television show of the director playing with action figures in his bathtub, and he's just bringing new ones in from the box as his mom brings them in. It's fucking crazy. It is incredible what they've been able to do with this shit and get away with, really. It's awesome. I'm glad that this show exists because I do love it, but man, is it a objectively horrible show. Not only is the writing bad, but the acting is so incredibly flat from almost every character except Emma Roberts. Every other character feels like they don't give a fuck. Occasionally there's moments of good acting, but most of the time it's when they're getting killed they go, "Oh, ow, ooh, stabby, stab, oh, stab, oh." Or if they're feeling sad, they're like, "Oh, I'm real sad. I'm very sad because you know why I'm sad." Then they explain why they're sad for the 50th fucking time. Eventually, when some plot details are unraveled, you don't hear the fucking end of the motivation because they don't know how to write a character. So, you know, why didn't you kill her? Well, I didn't kill her because I wasn't able to. But you know you need to kill her because I don't like her, and this is why I don't like her. Did you forget why I don't like her? I'll tell you again. So then they tell him again. It's bad. It's really fucking bad, but I absolutely love this show. And to really put a nice bow on the beauty of American Horror Story, this season, they did something they've never done before. They've set a new low in the kind of shit they do on the show. They forgot to write an ending. The new season of American Horror Story doesn't have a climax. It doesn't have an ending. What it has is what would happen after an ending. It gives you an epilogue. So the episode before the final one has this setup. It has you leading down this path that's going to have this setup, this payoff, a climax. Everything does. Movies, television shows, even fucking high school plays do. But American Horror Story forgot it. So what they do in the final episode is just give you a recap, a bunch of flashbacks, telling you what happened. And it's this montage of just breakneck pace garbage. So all those serial killers that I mentioned that end up there, well, within the span of about 30 seconds, you see all of them just get killed in the epilogue, just out of nowhere. I'm sorry to spoil it, but it's worth talking about. Out of nowhere, these serial killers that some of them they built up over the course of the last 8 episodes, some of them they just introduced in the last one, but over this course, they all just get killed immediately in these series of flashbacks as they're being told to another character. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. They forgot the most important component, which is a payoff and a climax. And these characters constantly keep making different decisions and different things. You know how I said all the characters had a troubled past? Well, none of it mattered because they forgot the troubled past. That was their solution to that. But it's fucking incredible to have a show that doesn't have an actual ending or a climax because you just forgot it. I love it. I absolutely love it. And that is why I think American Horror Story is one of the best shows on TV. Fucking awesome. I love the show. That's it. See ya.